Goes nothing. So welcome back to the Command Module Venture. I've got something to discuss today, a big project. My furnace died, and the furnaces in the inTech Soul Horizon are Suburban NT-20 SEQ model furnaces. They're like bigger than a bread box, but they're rectangular in shape. There's no outside port for access to change parts or do any maintenance, so it slides out into the cabin to work on. And you'll see my troubleshooting method. There are 1,000 furnace videos on YouTube, but there were none that covered this particular model of furnace, and none that certainly none that fit my particular symptoms. My symptoms were as follows. The fan blower would come on at the proper temperatures at the thermostat. It would start to ignite. It would actually ignite the gas and start heating, but within 2 minutes the flame would expire. I think it's 18 seconds. It retries to ignite. You can hear the igniters won't ignite. It pauses again for another 18 seconds or something like that. Tries to ignite, can't ignite, and then it dropped out into some endless loop of the fan going. So these were particular problems not covered in any video I found. One thing to note is that if it ignites, and it did this repeatedly, it was the same symptoms every time. So if it actually ignites, the sail switch is good, the high temperature switch is good, and the igniter is good. For all intents and purposes, the gas valve is good, and the solenoids, because it's letting gas to burn. But there is something about the gas control. So I did replace the regulator on the tanks. I don't know how that old that is. I'm the second owner of this trailer, and I thought maybe the regulator was getting weak. I looked at my flames on my stove, and I don't use a stove really, so I saw some yellow, and I didn't know. Just as easy to change the regulator. It's a cheap expenditure in my mind. Did that, no effect. So we'll go through the following video. It's lengthy, I apologize, but there's a lot of good points here in this, so let's get to it. Hello again. So now we're down at ground level, and work will begin. The gas is already turned off and entirely removed from the system, so there's going to be some extra in here in the lines. When I disconnect it from the furnace, I will smell it, but it's not going to be under pressure or anything like that, because we removed the regulator from the tank, so it's already bleeding out from the outside. So let me show you. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to undo the gas line from this connection right here. So take a look at that guy. And it helps to, the furnace is held down by these tiny screws on the bottom. There's one, and you'll see the second one there. It helps to leave those in, leave the furnace mounted to disconnect that valve. Otherwise the thing starts sliding around and things like that. So I'm gonna do that and come back. So I'm going to attempt to record this. The light isn't that great, but you notice there it is. And you can only get this hose on, it doesn't really go on that tight. I mean, you can really crank it, but still it's not on that tight. And there's no gasket to it. Let's see if I can do it with my finger. I can. It's coming. Oh, I smell gas. That's okay. It's not that much. Alright, so the gas line is removed. Now what we can do is remove these screws. And they're kind of into the floor, so that one's going to take persuasion. What's this one going to take? Okay, that one was played nice. It's coming. All right. I should mention a few things. Now, naturally, the plastic grill that comes off, it comes off with 2 screws. So I know you can understand that's already gone. But I want to take a minute to discuss this design with you. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a certified RV tech. But this is one step up from a gas grill. You know what I'm saying? It's got a couple extra sensors and a fan on it. So if you've ever cooked a steak, decided your grill was greasy and wanted to rebuild your grill, you can do this because it's all going to come down to replacing parts. Okay, and there are troubleshooting methods that RV techs have, and there are 1,000 videos on RV furnaces on how to troubleshoot these sensors. But these guys, these techs, they have, number one, a spare gas regulator hooked up to a spare tank that they can work on these with. And they have a spare 12-volt battery and a wiring harness they've made to connect up to it. And then, sure, you can troubleshoot with a multimeter the wiring and stuff. But, I'm in the field. And although I do have some stuff, I don't have a mobile setup to run this on a bench. And RV techs want $130 an hour to fix this. Well, this whole unit, this whole furnace, brand new, is $500. And they're on Amazon. And again, and it's really funny, I didn't know this, it's a Chevrolet product. I guess they own Suburban. So it's called a Chevrolet Suburban NT-20 SEQT furnace. And you can order it off of Amazon for $500 and be here in 2 days and slide it in and you're done. So, getting an RV tech involved for $130 an hour, I'm not sure that's a frugal decision to make. These are the heat exchangers, and these are what heats up, kind of like those channels in your gas grill heat up under the grill. So these heat up, and as long as they don't have cracks in them, which could introduce carbon monoxide, it's a pretty dumb part. I mean, it just doesn't do anything but heat up. This is the igniter. This is the window where you can look at the flame, and you take this whole assembly off to change the burner. You know how you use a gas grill for a couple seasons and your burners are toast? And you go to some big box store and buy a new burner and slap it in and your flames are all great. Well, you take this off and there's a gasket here. And, you just slide in a burner. It's the same thing as a gas grill, kind of.
Now then, I want you to pay attention though to this. As far as serviceability of this unit, it's got to come out. You know, here's the high temperature switch. The sales switch is in the back. And on this trailer, there's no outside panel to accessing. So this whole unit slides out, and you'll see that in a minute. But as far as serviceability, there's nothing to service except the high limit switch you can get to, and the igniter and a burner. But you can't get to the sales switch, you can't get to the control board, you can't get to the gas solenoids, which are right behind this. So, you know, you'll see a lot of videos for RV techs that say, oh, have your friend service every year. Well, that means yanking this thing out. And what they're going to do, they're going to troubleshoot by meter readings with a digital multimeter over these switches to tell if they're good or not, and slap it back in and, you know, charge you God only knows what. Well, I can do that. Anybody can do this, you know, but it's going to take a little bit more time because I don't have the troubleshooting paraphernalia that they have. So anyway, here's the igniter and also the flame switch. So there's two pieces to this. The igniter, like on a grill, except it's kind of automatic. You don't have to hold anything down. And then there's another little probe that goes right into the flame, and it tells the board, yes, there's a burning going on. So it's a dual purpose part. I pulled this out. This is actually the original. I pulled it out in the troubleshooting measure and got 400 grit sandpaper to sand it down, and cleaned it up, essentially the probes, and you'll see that after a bit. But, you know, it was already clean. It really wasn't that dirty, and I didn't expect it to work or help, and it didn't. I did replace the first thing I actually did was replace the high temperature switch, because these do go bad, and I think it's suspect that it's up front and center so people can actually replace it. But anyway, I replaced it, and the exact same symptoms occur. So I just wanted to give you a walk around of this before I yank it out, because that's the next step. Okay, so I'm going to start yanking it out, and it has two exhaust tubes at the rear of this heat exchanger. And they're connected, kind of, and then this is where the exhaust goes out, and also there's a tube for the intake of air from the outside of the trailer. But they actually slide in to that exhaust port on the trailer on the outside. And the first time I pulled this out, it was really tough to pull out, which meant I was afraid it was going to be really hard to put in. But happily, that didn't happen. So anyway, I expect it to be, still difficult. It should never probably be easy to pull out, but let's see here. And I don't know if the camera's going to survive this. Yep. Yeah, because I think the first time there was like a little bit of corrosion and things. I'm going to get that gas line just out of the way. Well, it's stubborn. Get in there, buddy. Okay, and so you see, it's coming out, so I won't bore you with that. Next thing you're gonna see is the whole thing out, laying on the floor. Okay, it has been extracted. Now you'll see, it's a vertically upright, and you'll see the metal case. You have to take this metal case off. I think my camera went screwy. There's a punch out here for like if you have ducts, but this trailer doesn't have ducted furnace, so it just blows out the front. But here's the next thing. The manufacturers of this trailer, and this goes towards serviceability again, because this outer case has to come off, I've got to disconnect these wires. And because I'm basically doing trial and error with several different parts, I've got to disconnect these wires every time. So, I hate it when people do this kind of stuff because it renders these units absolutely unserviceable unless you're going to wire net it to death. But having said that, always take pictures of the color coding on the connections before you mess with these, taking them off. And also, in this trailer, pull the auto fuse number 5 out of your distribution unit, because that provides 12 volt power to this. Also, the gas propane detector, which you can see maybe glowing green over there, and also happens to turn off the TV antenna, the powered TV antenna. But whatever, these wires have to be undone, and I think I've come up with a solution for that as well. Now, I'd also thought I'd show you the rear of the unit. Actually, this is the top, so it would be like this. One of the things you're supposed to look for is if there's anything in these pipes, but there's nothing. That's not my particular problem. But anyway, that's a look at that. And then I want to discuss something else with you. Just hang on a second. Now this goes towards what I was telling you about disconnecting the wires. Is that, of course, there's a connector on the control board for them, but because of how this case is made, you can't reach them. And that's why, disconnecting here is such a problem. Now, these two screws right here, there's one, and there's another one right over here. I don't know if you can see it. Right down there. That allows that whole case to come off. So it really makes me mad when they don't have an actual connector on this lead. You can just disconnect the trailer. The furnace is free to go put out on a picnic table. I'm going to look into rectifying that. Unbelievable. So now I made a Molex connector. This is 18 gauge wire. 18 gauge wire can handle 14 amps, I believe. Well, this whole this whole furnace only takes 2.9 amps. And the Molex connectors can take 10 amps. And so, this will make it much more serviceable to replace a part. Okay, what you're looking at here is a new sail switch, and although I don't think this is a problem, the existing one, because it ignites, I did detect some slop in this point of the switch. When I pull the old one out, you'll see it's mounted still, but there is no side-by-side slop, and there is in the one that's on it, and it's it's right down in there. So I'm going to pull that out and let you see it. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about that I saw. Look at the slop in the switch. Oh, it's only supposed to go up and down, but look at the slop. It's very worn out. When I look at this, the new one, I'll torque it from the switch side. There's no slop in that. Only up and down like it's supposed to be. So I don't think this is the problem, but it was about to be. So that's coming out. now that I have the new one seated, you can see there is no play. Of course it goes up and down. That other one was worn out. But my symptoms don't indicate it was the sail switch because it ignited. The igniter's fired. So it's impossible for the igniters to fire if that sail switch wasn't working. But it was about to die, and this was a good repair. Now notice there are these little teeny nylock nuts on here, and there are these little teeny hex screws on the back. You have to actually hold those screws. I held them with these right here. And then with other pair of pliers you have to tighten them down. So that in and of itself is a pain. But I'm gonna mount it again, and that will be done. And the new sail switch is mounted behind its little plate. So, and just to note, now that it's flipped right side up, how the furnace actually works, I wanted to show you the new sail switch in here. And it looks pretty nice. And again, here's the old one. And you may or may not be able to see it, but there's appreciable slop. Here, I'll lock down the blade and swivel torque the switch at body. And you can see, it's supposed to go up and down, but there is appreciable slop here. And it's not like that on the new one. So, this is dead. Okay, so next up on the docket is the burner. And I have a brand new burner. I'm going to check out how the burner is now, but I've got the new one I'm going to put it in. And we'll also see the igniter and flame sensor. And I should say here first, this is a new burner, a new igniter and flame sensor I'm going to put on the new burner. Let's just overhaul this thing. Now I had to take off the old flame sensor igniter. This is the new one you're seeing here, to get to rob it for these screws to put it on the new burner. And you notice the gasket set comes with several new gaskets. This one I'm going to need for the main body. I'm going to need this small one for the igniter and burner. This must be for a different model, and we'll just pitch that. And you pop this little guy out here, and then I'll have a new burner assembly real quick. So I'll be back. Charging. I've removed these 4 screws, so the burner and the igniter flame sensor will come out as a unit, and I want to do that to show you something. Remember, this is a little sight glass that you can look in and see the position of the igniter, see it igniting, see the flame, if it's a good flame, not a bunch of yellow in it, and you can even see the flame sensor right in the flame. And that's key because it needs to be in the flame to work. And so anyway, poof. And the gasket is destroyed, and I have gaskets. So I'm going to take this out, and maybe I can do it. And wow, didn't look that bad. Now you see, there's a grate here where the flame comes up, and this is the flame sensor. And it's got to be right over that, because sometimes these things get bent. This is the igniter, and it snaps between this, and it has to be 1/8 of an inch. But man, that looks good, that burner. So now you see the new burner and the old, and the burner comes with this mounting plate, which is interesting. I didn't know it did that. But look at that compared to the old one. I mean, the old one's good. Now, because I have a new one, I'm going to slap it in here, and then I'll keep the old one as a spare. And just to take a look at the inside of the chamber, there's some sediment, and I would expect that. There's the orifice. It looks clean. It looks spotless. And, there's some soot there, but I mean, this is burned really clean. Oh, bug. I bet you that was a bad night for him. So there's really not any soot on the burner, which is fantastic. So I'm back at it after several days, and I needed several days to get parts. And this is now removed from the trailer and sitting on the table. It only weighs 27 pounds, I think, or 22 pounds. It's lightweight. Last time we met here on this project, I replaced the sail switch. It wasn't bad, but it was worn, so I went ahead and changed it. I changed the igniter and flame sensor, and that didn't make any difference. And the first thing I changed was the high temp switch. So nothing made a difference. I also inspected the burner, and it looked fine. So I bought a new burner and discovered that the threads for the igniter aren't tapped, so I couldn't install it. Whatever, it's going back to Amazon. So now what we are down to are two things. Either it's the gas valve of the solenoids, and I've learned that these solenoids are integrated with a gas valve. Solenoids are $9 a piece, but unfortunately I haven't checked this out yet, but they say it's integrated to this gas valve, so that this is a $104 part. I'm either down, I think it's one of the solenoids, frankly. But another swap is the control board, and I ordered the control boards. Now then, of course, the part numbers have been superseded, and the control board that's recommended is this, and this is an aftermarket control board. And let me show it to you. I'll be right back. So what you'll notice is there are two control boards I bought, and the green one on the left is the actual part number that supersedes the one that's in it. And here we see the one that's in it. So fine, I ordered the part and got it in, but I wanted to have another one that was kind of like the original, as close as I could get, and this is what I bought. Now, this is not the recommended part number. So, but what do you notice about these two control boards? Let me flip this around the way it's supposed to be, the way it'll be mounted in the cabinet. The contacts, if you notice, the contacts are on the left. Well, the new board that's recommended, it's on the bottom. Well, that's no problem. Just move it to the bottom. The wires aren't long enough. So I said, I researched that. I said, no one's talking about the new board that needs to be in here and extending the wires. No one is talking about this. And I researched it, and there's a $59 wiring harness extension for this. I don't have the part number right in front of me, but all it is like a handful of wires and another connector for $59 from Suburban. Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get out my soldering iron and extend these wires myself. I'm going to clip the connector and do that. Now, I'm not going to install this one. I think, this is a match. It's different architecture, got an IC and stuff, and instead of capacitors and things, but I think this would actually work. But I'm not going to bother, the time of, installing this and putting it in the cabinet. And, I don't know where I was going with this when I bought it.
but I think, I don't want the time. I'm going to put the one that's recommended in this, but that's going to take moving the wires or extending the wires with a soldering iron and heat shrink. And, again, I think I mentioned this before. If you're having a service guy do this, number one, he's not going to have these parts. Okay? And the service guys are $130 a piece, an hour, I mean. And so they're not going to have the parts of this thing laying around. And they may have this maybe because it's a yellow banded. It's a special one. Most of them are higher temperatures than this is rated. This furnace is meant to be replaced. But I've added it up. I've got $120 in it in parts right now. So if I replace this board and it works, I'm ahead. If it needs, and I think it does need one or both of these solenoids fixed, it's going to take the gas valve. I don't have the tools to remove this with this gas seal. I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. At that point, I will have spent half of what a new one costs, whole new furnace, and it's not worth it to me. It'll be all rebuilt, but the motor will still be old. So what's the point in that? So what will happen is, if this board doesn't fix it, I am stripping all the electrical parts off of this furnace and chucking it in the trash and buying a new one. So I've pulled off the original board. The first thing to get the connector free so I can start extending the wires. And I just wanted to inspect the board. I wanted to see a part number. You can't see a part number from the front side. And I flipped it over. And I might get real lucky here. I don't know. But this component, let's see if I can stick my finger here. And I have a close-up picture of it that I'll put in the video. This component, let's see how close I can get. Not really close. That component looks fried. If it's not fried, it's real ugly. So I may get lucky putting a new controller board. It gives me a glimmer of hope. But there is no part number now. There's a revision number. Well, I'll hold my judgment on that. I haven't looked, but I wanted to point that out. I think we got a failed component. Okay, I'll be back. So there's another thing I want to interject into here that I knew that I didn't mention before. So the green one, the new part number is on the right now, and this is the original one on the left. You'll notice the standoffs aren't equal. So they expect you, and they have instructions and some basic hardware to make new standoffs for this unit. I mean, you couldn't dream this stuff up, and it all adds up to my, see, even front to back and the width, the standoffs are wrong. So you couldn't dream this up. It goes to my theory that these are throwaway furnaces. Now then, I did notice something else. This is the gas valve. These are the integrated solenoids for the gas valve. In other words, it's a one-piece unit. And on a lot of Suburban furnaces, you can replace these for $9 and you're golden. But with these 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, and 4, this unit comes out, and then this is the actual, this goes into the burner with the orifice. So technically, I think I could change this if I want to spend $400. Or $104. So, anyway, the good news is I think I found a bad component, so we're leaving this thing alone for now. All right, I think I'm finally going to start working on this. See ya. So what you see here is the connector disconnected, and I got lucky again.
this wire goes to the high temperature switch, and I only need to extend this wire to make this go over into position to get to the new controller. So it's not like I have to do all 4 wires. So you see it's ready to solder, and I've got my heat shrink ready, and we'll continue on. Stand. So I've added about 2 inches here, 2.5 inches, and that's enough. And I've got my connections here, and I'm going to solder, and I've got my heat shrink on either end ready to go. So I'm going to solder this very carefully. Get some heat on that connection. Give that a second. And that's 2. Okay, we're covering up the splices with the heat shrink. Nice and gently, a slow roast. Never want to go too fast with this stuff. Okay, the board is in position, the connector's in position, my spliced wire just gives it enough. I've got the high temp switch connected. Now what they give you is a little plastic standoff thing, like a push pin like you find on a car fender, and it's threaded through this little metal bracket they give you, and they want you to drill a hole right here in the standoff metal piece of the fender, or I mean the furnace. And it's interesting, if you can see it, it's even pre-punched for it. So, you know, these things are just absolutely so manufactured to do so many parts and so many different furnaces. It's kind of weird. But anyway, let me drill this out. Teeny tiny little it's right in the punch mark. I'm not sure if you can see that or what. Okay, so you see this teeny tiny little hole on the standoff, and this will match that, and I just screw it down. So let me come back. So now you see that the standoff is mounted, and it's solid and vertical like it should be. Everything's connected. All the wires reach. I've got to get a zip tie or something for this. It was originally zip tied here, but when I put the Molex on, so this was serviceable to begin with, I undid that, so I will get that ready. Then another thing I want to point out here real quick is an on-off switch. And you can't reach that once it's in the cabinet. Here's the cabinet over here. See that standing vertically? You know, it's just another weird piece, you know, to make it fit in any kind of RV. But anyway, the proper part number controller is in here. It's mounted correctly. We'll see if what I found is a bad component is the problem. Although, you know, it looked like it was going to go bad, so I guess it's another step in the chain, so I will be back. And I wanted to show you something before I close it out. The small screw is what they give you. They give you two small screws, and the large screw is one of the originals. And this is an original screw here, but this is a small screw. And the reason for that is the large screw went in, but I don't know if there's enough light. But the fan was right down in there, and it passed, but I pulled it out and put it in the small screw. Okay. So now I've got the unit back in the cabinet, and you'll notice this little tab here, and it runs the seam all the way to the back of the cabinet, and there is a gap in the chassis of the fan that must straddle this tab, or you can't get the thing in. And you'll notice that this is not straight, but bending it, I was able to, nothing is precision with this. It's kind of crude. It works, but it is not a precision piece of kit here. So anyway, I got it back in only because I've done it so many times. Now I know what I'm doing. And there's a hole here for a screw. This is part of the unit. This is the cabinet. This secures it to the cabinet here, and there's a screw up here as well. But I'm leaving those out because until I fix this, I'm taking it in and out of the cabinet. And so now you pass the wiring harness out through that plastic piece. And, I have my Molex now, so I can, connect it back and forth instead of wire nuts. And then only the hose that goes on, and it's fairly easy to get to. So I'm going to install it, and I'll probably come back when it's time for the acid test.
So, I didn't bore you with reinstalling that because I think I covered that easily. One thing to know when you're putting it back in and sliding those exhaust ports into that outer exhaust port on the side of the hull is that it can either take 5 minutes or 5 days. And you don't pound anything because it's a very close maneuver to getting that back in. And you'll know when it slides in. And you can go on the outside and look in through the little circular grill, and you can see that the exhaust pipes and intake pipe both are inside the sleeve of the thing on the outside of the trailer, where their exhaust and intake comes out. But it is a tricky maneuver to get it back in. You have to be patient. Again, 5 minutes or 5 days, but it will go back in. Another thing I wanted to cover is this project probably is 3 weeks in duration, only because parts are extremely scarce for these units. The temperature switch, I changed the first. I didn't know the proper igniting sequence, and it was told to me that those temperature switches can get weak. They will still operate, but they will fail afterwards. So I went ahead and put that temperature switch in. Well, it took 5 days to get one, and it took a whole day to find one, because these are special little deals. They come off, they actuate at a lower temperature than most furnaces, and these have a yellow band on them to designate that that's what they are, and the part number is correct, but they're really hard to find. I called Camping World. It was going to be 5 days, and they wanted $80 for one or something. It was crazy. And then there were two websites I hadn't ever heard of. Suburban RV Parts, I believe it is, had it. So and I bought two to have an extra one, but that didn't fix my problem. But understand that the parts for these are very hard to find. The controller actually was on Amazon. The igniter was on Amazon. The burner was on Amazon, but it's junk because it didn't have threaded taps for the igniter for whatever reason. So that went back to Amazon. But it's not an easy thing. Again, in service techs just aren't going to have these parts on hand for this unit. One of the best descriptions I read on a forum was the NT series furnaces are bastardized by Suburban, and you can tell, they're the way they go together. They must pick out different parts for different furnaces to build different furnaces, and it's a big conglomeration of parts, and to fit into an NT. Also, that metal cabinet, when you take the furnace out of that metal cabinet and put it back in, that thing is razor sharp. Every part of it is sharp. So be careful or be prepared to be cut. Again, I'm happy it's working. My effort was worth it. I have $104 in parts in it, only because I replaced the wrong parts. It ended up being the controller, which was $35, and but on the other hand, all those parts, I have a 3/4 rebuilt furnace now, and the heat exchangers were beautiful, no cracks. The burner was fine. The main blower motor isn't switched now. So I'm happy. It was a learning experience for me. It can be done by anyone. Just take your time if you're in the field, and that's it. So I hope this is valuable, because I couldn't find anything like this on YouTube. So I would appreciate it if you liked the video. Just hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.